It's a blessing to her soul. She loves to hear Savannah sing. Well, it's a sign that God is with her. She may not have much here on earth, but she knows miracles occur when she hears Savannah sing. She stands up real straight and she sings it out loud. It's enough to break your heart. It's enough to make the kid in you come out. When you hear Savannah sing, oh, she sounds just like an angel. And oh, the joy it brings, it's a blessing to your soul.
Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. Little ones to him belong. They are weak, but he is strong. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. Yes, Jesus loves me. The Bible tells me so.
You are listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. WOOP FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
Where'd the old town go? They moved it all north of here in the shopping mall.
Welcome to Old Town Cleveland here on WOOP FM 99.9, or you can go to the internet at www.woopfm.com. You can call us here at 614-5553, and my lovely co-host, my privilege to say so. I used to say it was my requirement, and I got in trouble. So it is my privilege to introduce my co-host, Debbie Moore. Good morning.
Good morning, Ron. We have a lively group here this morning.
We done lost control.
We have lost control. I need a big stick. This morning is March the 30th, 2013, and we'd like to start off the day sending out our best wishes to the family of Jack Owenby. I understand that we have lost him, and he was quite the historian and lived in my neighborhood when I grew up, and I love and appreciate that family, and I'm sorry to hear that we have lost him. Also, we've lost the Spot restaurant. It closed for good on the yesterday afternoon, and they are looking for someone that might be interested in opening that establishment back up. So if anybody out there is listening that would like to get in the restaurant business, there's nothing better than the Spot
burger. Yeah.
A Spot burger, and it probably came with the
Chili.
original recipe, which they hadn't washed the pan in 76 years. Is why it was so good.
That's right.
And we'd like to announce too that on April the 11th, our good friends down at the Rebel will be opening in the evening.
Lottaburger at night.
Lottaburger at night. I'm not
Thursday,
sure.
Friday, and Saturday
As
night.
far as we know,
6
it's on
to 9.
6:30 in the morning to 9 o'clock at night. You can get yourself a Lottaburger. But we have this morning with us Danny Ledford, and Neil Allen and David Swafford, and we're going to be talking about motor oil and transmission and the men that knew what to do with those things.
And we'd like to welcome David Swafford, the new co-host of Whoop on Wheels.
That's right.
So always glad to have David here. And the Fire by the expert in Bradley County on Wild River.
Oh, by far the expert.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did I get close to that?
You said the far by.
The far by. That something sounded strange about it when I said it. You know, there's no scripts here, and I get in real trouble here sometimes. I'd like to thank everybody that come out last Sunday to the documentary.
So, Neil, what did you think about that little documentary in that crowd?
I'm glad you asked. It was wonderful. I was extremely impressed. You have an extremely talented 21-year-old son, and of course I know you and Ron both worked very hard on it. Very, very well done. I told Ron on the way out, and I meant it, I've not seen anything done any better on PBS.
I think we'll have an easier time the next time, because it's kind of hard to get your parents to do what you want them to do.
It was extremely well done, and that was certainly a subject that needs preserving.
Yeah.
It did, and I really enjoyed the fact that we
what
had
about you, Dave? I know you got to see it also.
Oh, man, it was incredible. Me and my mom both, we talked about it all the way home, and our dreams of other projects that we might throw your way.
Well, yeah, I know one that you're interested in, and we're willing to talk about that. And the next thing we're doing in the documentaries is we're going to start on something that has something to do with mechanics and some called the Cleveland Speedway. Next April will be 60 years that's been going on here in Bradley County. So we're going to do a documentary about that. Mr. Swafford has already been volunteered to work on it. And
I've already said I'm going to someplace to pass out information, and you're going with me. And he just shakes his head yes.
It's starting amazing about the information going in. We still need old video, either video or 8mm tape. Guaranteed you'll get all that back. And what we will do is include that in there. And pretty amazing the stories. We've talked to some of the former track owners have already contacted us, and of course we'll probably have to chase down Bobby Orr out here as much as we hate. No, Bobby's a good guy, but he was a judge there for a long time and an announcer, and so of course Doc German here. We just got back from Dawsonville, Georgia, from the NASCAR, the Georgia NASCAR Hall of Fame, where Bill Elliott's from Dawsonville, and met a couple other old-time dirt track racers who've raced at Cleveland Speedway.
I think the funny thing there is that you come over the hill and there's this new modern strip mall complex, and you have City Hall, the NASCAR Racing Museum, and the Moonshine Distillery right there beside each other. And I have to, we didn't go to City Hall, but I'll assure you that the NASCAR Racetrack Museum, whatever the official name of it.
Georgia.
NASCAR. And the distillery is well worth your drive over there. And they let you go back in the back, and the little guy in the overalls explains to you what recipe he's using, how it all works. He'd made himself a redneck, what did he call that? Corn?
Cooler.
A redneck cooler. Well, actually, he had his corn in there to sprout, had burlap laying over the top of it, and they had an old cooler, and they had a heater in there, and it was heating it up to make it sprout. And it was pretty good.
That's so you don't have to use sugar, you know.
And the moonshine would take the paint off of your car, I think.
But you can't buy the moonshine there. You can go down the block to the liquor store and buy the moonshine, but you can't buy it in the distillery itself. So, but
I told Ron we need to retire and go there and open up a liquor store next door to her business.
Then we had the opportunity to go down to the pool hall. That's where everybody eats at in Dawsonville. It's owned by Mr. Perkle, who's one of the racers.
So the walls are just plastered with all these great old pictures of NASCAR, the races in Dalton.
Little old gentleman walked in, which had on a veteran's hat and a jacket, had all these campaigns he had fought in. He'd been a POW. He was 96 years old. Had just been to Chattanooga to record the history that they do up there for him. And we started talking with him and found out he had also been the official photographer for the Atlanta Braves for the last 41 years. He'd been retired some time now. And so he says, I've got a book that I wrote. And then I said, well, yeah, I want it. And he says, and he come in and said, you want to buy it? He said, before you look at it, I said, yeah, I wanted to buy it and meant you had the book and you were the official
it's
photographer.
Fabulous.
So great. And we ate at, what was the place down in Somerville? Not Somerville, Cartersville.
Cartersville. Well, the best thing I had to eat in Cartersville was a hamburger at the Booth Museum.
Which is amazing. But there's a little place we had breakfast.
Appalachian. Oh no, we ate the Appalachian Grill for dinner one night, and then we went to the Ross House. It's been in business since 1934.
45, I think. 40. Anyway, it's been there a long time. It's an old-fashioned stools only around the counter type thing, and it was just an old-fashioned looking place down on Main Street, and so that's been my few days. Guys, tell me about who's your favorite mechanic of all time. Mr. McLean said your family used to work with his family. Tommy McLean?
Yes. Gosh, now some of that goes back farther than I can remember, but I remember my dad working at the Ridge Rambler, or the Rambler dealership out on 64, and he worked at what used to be Owens Tire, and oh shoot, my mind's a steel trap, and it just got locked up. They're on Inman Street. Grover Ash had a tire store there. My dad worked there. Then he worked for Mullinax Lincoln Mercury. Then he started his own business, and we were on Harl. That's when I started back in '68 on Harl Avenue behind Jake's Auto Parts. Yeah, they're next to Mullinax. And then we moved to Worth Street around 69 or 70, and then I've been on Worth Street ever since. I mean,
have you ever had any water in the building?
No.
No.
Never have.
No, the water goes the other way then, or?
No, we just always got close.
Okay. Yeah, the creek runs right by there, you know.
Yeah.
Now, I growing up, I was always told if you want your front end alignment, you went to George Ledford or Marvin Cry.
Yep.
That's what I've always been told, and that's now I probably offended another 200 or 300 front end alignment guys, but growing up, that's
Marvin actually owned a gas station at some point in time
up on Norfolk Coy
with Mr.
McConnell?
Goins.
Oh, Goins.
Mr. Cry, Mr. Goins. Now, Mr. Cry is still alive and well and racing up and down the halls up at Signature, I believe, and our daughter has met him, and he's quite the character.
Well, he's a mechanic.
He's a mechanic. There you go.
Yeah.
Neil, tell us about your dad. He sort of.
Okay,
Put that mic over in front of you a little bit.
My father was Carl L. Allen, and he owned and operated Allen's Garage down on South Lee Highway for about 30 years. And started out, he was always around mechanical stuff. Their family was in the lumber business, and they had to keep machinery going. He got his formal training in the Army Air Corps during World War II. That's before it was known as the Air Force. When he got out of the service, he first worked for Citizens Dodge in Chattanooga dealership. Then they moved to Cleveland. He rented a garage on Wildwood Avenue for a little while. Bought all the tools and equipment from the guy he was renting from, went down on South Lee Highway, bought the property, and opened Allen's Garage. He did general repairs from engine work, engine rebuilding, entire drive line, transmissions, rear ends, brakes. If it broke, he fixed it. He developed a couple of specialties. He was one of the first in the area independent garage owners to do automatic transmission work. He went to the GM Training Center down in Atlanta. In fact, he and James Gordon, they would go to Atlanta together. Both of them were they got in it basically at the same time. And this was when automatic transmissions were, new stuff. And if you want it serviced or repaired, you went to the dealership. But as I say, he and James Gordon were one of the first independent garage owners to start that. Another specialty he developed and stayed real busy doing this for years was four-wheel drive work, Jeeps and so forth. He developed part sources for those vehicles and stayed really rather busy doing that. And people, not just in the Cleveland area, but surrounding counties would bring him work in that regard. He bought up a lot of junk. It really wasn't junk, but Jeep junk. Jeep junk, right. And for example, he would take a differential, not just set it out there and sell it. He would tear it down, go through it, do all the inspection, replace parts if needed, So when you were buying a component or a piece from him, it was right. It wasn't junk. It might have come in there junk, but it left rebuilt.
Now I understand he also was a collector of fine art.
Yes, he was.
Tell us a little about that artwork.
Well, this was common fare back in the 40s, 50s, into the probably mid 60s. Wall art sounds better. Long story short, he had an entire wall of his garage. It was the north wall, covered with calendars.
Girly calendars.
Well, okay.
Lady mechanics.
No. But that was just common fare, and it was junkyards, parts vendors, machinists. Everybody had their calendar, and I did keep one once he closed his garage. I've still got it, and I advised him to keep it, and I've got it now. It is, in honest to goodness, legit Marilyn Monroe calendar.
Wow.
And it's not in pristine shape, but it's, pardon the pun, it's all there. But another thing too, I remember him getting the Parts Pups joke books from
Yes,
from
I remember
Napa.
those.
And they were rather interesting to look through. Certainly as a child, they were interesting. So that's some mechanics art.
And everyone thought it was all work.
Well, and I still have people today that come in and say, "Hey, where's the girly calendars at?" And as far as
buy that now.
No, and as far as I know, they don't make them anymore. And plus, I'm a redeemed mechanic, and so
Redeemed.
yeah. On top of that, my wife would kill me.
Well, something too that was interesting to me. My father always did our preacher's mechanic work. So you know.
Well, amen.
Well, that's what my dad thought.
These were God's creatures also.
Absolutely.
Dave,
of them
I
were
think
very
that was
well.
just part of the time because you could get that kind of thing.
It
But
was just part of it.
I have no idea what that calendar would be worth, Neil. But I would say a collector would pay quite a bit for that.
I researched a little bit on the internet, and she did the very same calendar, the same pose, a couple of other times later. But from what I could find out, of course, everything's right on the internet, but it is her name is not on it, and it's undated. The photograph is, and according to what I found, that was the number one.
Oh my!
And she was doing it.
That's your 401k,
No,
Neil.
it's not worth that much.
Oh.
But she did it literally to earn money. She was down and out. And this was before she hit the big time, and she didn't want her name on it, and it wasn't dated. I mean, that was like 1953, I think, is when it was actually done.
David Swafford here. For you folks that don't know, David has actually worked in the pits in NASCAR, and you told me a story about your favorite mechanic, and you had a name for him.
Oh yeah. Well, back when I was little, we used to take my dad used to take everything to Ledford's, Danny being my uncle, and but I was too little to pay attention to that back then. But as I got in high school and bought junkers, and that's what I had was junker cars. I had bought a Camaro that as soon as I bought it, it tore up and needed the transmission worked on it. And so we took it out to Red Wright's out there on White Oak Mountain, and he would rebuild a whole transmission for $100.
Yeah,
an automatic transmission. I'm like, wow. So that was a blessing, because you take it over to Joe Lee Johnson's, over here at Superior Transmissions, and you'd have to pay a whole lot more. And being a teenager, I couldn't afford that. But my favorite mechanic growing up was Tommy Lynn, who was also on White Oak Mountain. And my best friend in high school, Robbie Goins, had gave him a nickname. He called him T-Tide Torkin Tommy Lynn, Mr. Crescent Wrench of the South. And that
Can you
guy,
say that 3 times real fast?
Yeah. And I had bought a Trans Am after the Camaro, and the transmission tore up on it, but it was a straight shift. And so Tommy Lynn did the work on it, and he's out there on the dirt with this floor jack, and he didn't have a garage or anything. He's just out there out in the yard doing it.
Real shade tree.
Yeah, and he spent the whole day working on that thing, And then you go up there, and he has his shirt full of wadded up money, and I'd say, how much do I owe you? Oh, that'll be about $15. I mean, and it was incredible. I don't know why he charged such a cheap price for all day, but
just trying to help a kid out.
Yeah.
Danny, I think the last time you were on the show, you were talking about the first car you had.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us about that again. I'm sure David will enjoy this.
It was, I don't know whether you remember it or not, Dave.
Oh, we got a call here. Here we go. Good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Good morning, Ron. Dave. How you doing?
Hey, Bob. How are you?
Bullet, how are you?
Pretty good. Almost had a little super day.
He's
How's it
waving
going?
at you.
And I was on. You guys remember Billy Bryant, don't you?
Yeah.
That's the guy I bought my first car from, and it was a '59 Pontiac, and it wouldn't go backwards. And so I took it back to him, and he made a comment. He said, "You don't go backwards, you go forward." And I said, "Well, I want a car that goes both ways." And he finally took it back. And but just talking about your favorite mechanics, I used to take mine out on Benton Pike to Pappy Morgan.
Yep.
And he was a cheap guy, and he always kept my dad's car running. And and as far as my front end lineman, I always took it out at Cries. And how you guys doing this morning?
We're good.
Yeah, I just got out of the hospital Thursday, and in there for I've been having irregular heartbeats all the time. They say it's nothing to do with my heart, so maybe I ought to learn to live with it. And anyway, I'm going to enjoy the show this morning. And,
Take it easy.
Yeah.
All righty, Bullet. Good talking to you,
Now,
buddy.
don't get too excited. We get to talking all this old stuff.
We'll see it.
Now, go back to your car, Danny.
It was a 50 Ford two-door sedan, six-cylinder, 3-speed on the column, and it'd been brush painted with them little cans of red paint like you used to buy at Western Auto or wherever. Poured them all in a big gallon and took a brush and painted it, and I was it. I mean, that was heaven for me. And it only got like about 40 miles to the gallon, so of course that's when gas was 25 cents a gallon, so it didn't matter too much.
You know, anything that happened to our cars except the transmission, my dad fixed it. It might have been with baling wire, and it might have been with electrical tape, but he just fixed it. I didn't know mechanics existed.
That you used to be able to do that. You could actually crawl up into the hood and get down in there with the engine. Now, there's no room in there now.
No, it's so computerized, and that's why I stuck with front end work all my life, because there's no sensors in the front ends. That's all I know. I grew up, like I said, for 40 plus years doing it, and it's the basic knowledge. I can walk up to a car and look at it and tell you what's wrong with it on the front end, just about.
But that was, that's just the way we did it. My grandpa, you go down and the cars were up on the blocks in the front yard, and everybody's out there working on it.
Everything right in front. There's the water pump right there in front. Here's the starter. I mean, it's right there, and you need a tire tool and a wrench. You loosen the bolt and pull the fan belt up with the tire tool, and it was fixed.
The Volkswagen that I had until just probably 18 months ago that I loved. It was crazy under that hood. Everything was packed in there, and to change anything, you had to take the whole thing apart.
Yeah,
even the battery.
Well, just to replace the headlight, you'd have to take the whole motor out practically. It was crazy.
What's the first car you had, Neil?
The first car that I had, I bought from my father. It was a 1960 Volvo 544. I found the car and went with the fellow that owned it down by the garage and, showed it to Daddy. And Daddy asked the guy what he wanted for it. It was $200. Well, I didn't have $200. And Daddy just out and paid for it, bought the car. And it was, I don't know, a week and a half, 2 weeks later, Daddy came to me and said, I know that you wanted that car, and I had the money. I just bought it. And he said, if you still want it, just give me the money back and it's yours. And it was in the summertime, and I was working, and I had $200. And he told me something I already knew, but he wanted to make darn sure I knew it. He took the $200 out of my hand, looked me right in the eye, and said, "Now there it is, and all that goes with it. When it tears up, you'll learn to fix it."
That's right.
There's no free ride. I already knew that. He just wanted to make sure of that, and it did tear up, and I did learn to fix it. But he helped me fix it. He didn't do it himself. He helped me.
Guide you through.
And that's the way he was throughout. As far as me having an interest in mechanics or anything like that, he never encouraged it or discouraged it. He wasn't positive toward it. He wasn't negative toward it. Now, as I got older, and he saw, well, yeah, he really is interested in mechanics, and he's going to pursue it. He would help me out. But even then, I had to ask for help, and that was okay.
He was being a teacher.
That's right.
And a good father.
You're exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning, you're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Hello, this is Ella.
Hey, Ella, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. I'm walking around in the mall.
What are you doing in the mall?
I found me a dress that I'm going to wear tonight. It's not red, but it's
Well, so where are you going tonight?
Pockies.
Oh, I thought you was probably drunk at Pokey's last night and still wandering around the mall this morning.
No, I couldn't go last night because I didn't have my check.
Oh, you got your check today, hey?
Yeah.
All right, so
Yeah, I found me one for $6 at Kmart.
a $6 dress.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds like a nice in there.
Yeah, it is. But you know what? They don't have no summer dresses out yet. You know.
Well, it's too cold to be summer yet.
Well,
She's dancing. She's going to get warm in that winter dress.
the Belks does. Belks do, because I went in there and looked at the dresses.
Well, just get you a bikini.
No. It had to be a big one. Okay.
All right. Well,
All right, Miss
good
Ella.
hearing from you.
Bye-bye, dear.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Ron?
Tell me your first car.
Well, my first car was a 68 Firebird. And my sister still has it, and it'd go faster than any teenager needed to go. And George Ledford put it back together for me a few dozen times, and Jolie Johnson put the transmission back in it, and my sister still has it, and it still runs. And it needs a little body work done on it, but other than that, she's doing great. Tell them about selling the Tennessee Tea truck, Ron.
Oh.
Oh, no. I think he's going to start crying.
Well, we had this big box truck. It was a Chevrolet, access to the motor was inside. You had to take that off. Well, we had decided to sell it because we had stopped traveling around playing at that time. So John Cook and I, first off, we had to go start it again because the flywheel had some teeth off of it. So we'd get underneath there with a screwdriver and turn those little teeth. And I'd try to crank it, and it wouldn't run. And I sprayed a little starter fluid up in that carburetor up there. John moved that little teeth again, and it run, and it stopped. And so I sprayed a little bit more of that in there, and we went on 3 or 4 times. Finally, I just emptied the can into the carburetor. So this sucker's going to start. Well, but that ether is heavier than air. It's in there, and John's underneath there, and it knocked John out. So anyway, I cranked it up, and you could hear that truck all over downtown Cleveland. We was down near McCoy's Auto Park down that area. That truck, you could have heard it, and it smoked and banged. And I said, if I was John, I'd move out from underneath there. But I done knocked him out with the ether. And, John's a big old boy, and I tried to pull him out from underneath there in the gravel and pulled him out through there. And about time I got him just about out, he woke up and stood up and knocked himself out on the edge of the thing. So anyway,
3 stages.
This is just the start of the story.
We just put up for sale, and the guys that run the used to be a mechanic shop up where the Pond of Roses is up there. They needed a big truck, like the box. Really, what they wanted, they didn't really need the truck, but so a guy come to try it out, and 10 minutes went by, and he drove it, and 20 minutes, and an hour and a half went by, and 2 o'clock. So this dude's done stole my truck. So anyway, then he shows up here in a minute in another car. He says, well, there's a problem with the truck. He says, what's that? He said, the engine caught on fire. I said, oh, my gosh. He said, it's all right. The radiator blew up and put the fire out. He said, also, thank goodness it ran out of gas at the same time, and there's a flat tire on the back. I says, how much you give me for it? So he offered me some money, and I said, well, I'll take the money. You go get it. So you can see my mechanic days were not very good. David, what was your first car?
Oh, it was that junky Camaro, and it was one of those plain old Camaros. Didn't even have a spoiler on it, you know. But I still thought I was cool in it. And it drove like maybe a day or two, and then it ended up sitting for like 2 or 3 years because I didn't have the money to fix it. But whenever you drive it, the ceiling, the headliner, it would rest on your head.
And
Push pins, that's right.
If you got enough speed up, it would flap.
I had a '63 Chevrolet, and I kept tearing the muffler off the bottom of it. So somebody got the wild idea. We just welded on. So we just welded the muffler on. So I just peeled the bottom of the muffler off then. And so I rode around town. People said, "You got a muffler on that car? Look, get on there and look." You know. So I had a muffler, and it's pretty loud, and the fumes were pretty bad. But besides that, it's okay. Probably where I got my brain damage somewhere along the way. Somebody mentioned Pappy Morgan there a minute ago. He was sort of a legendary mechanic around the area, was he not?
Yeah, I remember him when he was up at Homer Greens at South Lee there, and just worked on the north front corner of the building outside. Mm-hmm. And he stayed busy. Evidently, he was a very good mechanic. Stayed busy all the time.
So I remember him, of course. Remember him being big. Of course, I was smaller then, and. Did he always have on overalls, it seemed like?
Yeah, mechanics coveralls. And he was a stout-looking gentleman.
Mm-hmm. And it didn't matter, rain, cold.
He was out there.
He was there.
He was out there.
Now, did he have a business license, or was he just hanging around in the parking lot fixing cars?
Who knows?
I wouldn't have asked him.
No, okay.
So now, did he work for Homer, or was he just there?
I really don't know.
I don't either.
I really don't.
It always gives me a giggle just to drive by the auto parts places and people working on their cars out in the parking lot. So I'm sure I would have enjoyed seeing Pappy too.
I've actually seen. I think it was in front. This has been a few years back in front of AutoZone. It was a larger flatbed truck. A guy out there rebuilding a wheel cylinder on the rear wheel in the parking lot.
Now, Dave, do you remember where Homer Greens was?
No, I remember the name, but
well, you used to live real close to it.
Oh,
it's almost across from the Dairy Cream.
Yeah, almost across
from
the Dairy
Cream. At first, the Dairy Cream, that if you're facing Dairy Cream to your right, that was Homer Greens up there where that store is now. That was Homer Greens, and my uncle ran a little restaurant right at the end of Homer Greens out there, and it's the first place I remember seeing a sign that says Negroes Only, which, you know, it had cleaned up by that time, you know, but yeah, Homer Greens. I think Carolyn Green. What's her last name now? I don't know. Carolyn, but her daughter Carolyn. They went across the street and done a little appliance business after they closed that down. I believe, wasn't it?
I think so.
No, was that Cantrell's garage?
It's the one. It was the next building.
Okay.
Past that.
Okay.
That's all tore down, and it may have been tore down then. I don't remember. I've slept too many times since then.
Yeah,
there goes the steel trap again.
Homer Green was our next door neighbor. He lived directly next door. Let's see, it was Gary and Carolyn and Shelby were the kids.
Right, Gary. Boy, I hadn't heard that name in a long time. Yeah,
good. They were good neighbors.
Yeah. Who else was some of the mechanics around town? Now, Snake Man wasn't a mechanic. He just sold you the parts, right?
Yeah.
They say on his 50th birthday, they blindfolded him and handed him various parts, and he could take them apart and put them back together and tell you what every part was and everything blindfolded. Yeah.
He got a sharper mind than I do.
Well, some of them, and some of these we discussed the other time. You had Howard's Garage. It was on South Lee. Carl Gregg, he did automatic transmission work also. He was just up the street from Daddy. Of course, we talked about Pappy Morgan. Walt Chappelle, he was over on Chippewa Avenue.
Yep.
And he raced some. And you had J.C. McGraw Garage. It was up
at the ballpark curve.
Right.
Yep.
Right. And then
Georgia Boy.
Right. Had Georgia Boy on the side of the building.
Georgia Boy.
Good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Yeah, you're just talking about Pappy Morgan. I've seen him crawl under them old cars with the snow on the ground.
Yeah.
I've seen him do it. I've seen him with my own 2 eyes.
Well, you just...
The mercy.
Was that down on South Lee?
Yeah, I know Homer Greens.
Yeah.
That's many years ago, man.
Yeah, many years ago. I laughed down there one day. He was working on this old man's car. That old man's drunk. And he's right in the way, you know, and had his head down there. And he'd ask Pappy every few minutes, how much you going to charge me? Pappy said, well, I don't know what all I'm going to have to do. And he kept on. And Pappy got up close to him and asked him, said, I don't know how much have you got. He said, oh, no. Oh, tell him how much you had. Okay, I just...
Thank you, dear.
Oh, Pappy was a toughie.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Hey, we're talking about mechanics this morning here on Old Town Cleveland. You can call us here at 614-5553. Got Danny Ledford, Neil Allen, and whoops on David Swafford here with us today.
Okay,
and,
guys, who was the fellow that worked up at Bob's Golf?
I went blank.
That moment of silence is brought to you by Debbie's question.
I'm wanting to say, and I'm guessing, was it Romeo?
Yeah.
And I don't know why I remember that.
I don't know his
I
real
don't
name.
know.
But that's what everybody
He
called
was
him.
the son of Bob that originally owned.
And I may be wrong.
What was Bob's last name?
I don't know that.
Golf.
Golf. Yeah.
That's all I ever heard of Bob's.
Well, I just remembered in the late 70s, after you started the self-pump things and all that, is that was the only place in town you could go that, or not only place, one of the few last places you could go and get a little bit of auto work done. All right. We've got Danny's better half here. Do you want to talk, Miss Kim? Nope, she don't want to talk. She's coming to tell you about a golf tournament. As you guys know, they had a tragic loss. Their son was killed in an automobile accident by a drunken driver, and they are trying to make people very aware of this. And she's going to tell you about a golf tournament they're having coming up. And let's get this phone call first.
Good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
How you doing, Ron?
I'm doing fine, Brett.
Yeah. Hey, Ron.
Yeah.
There's basketball this afternoon.
All right. Who's playing? Who's playing?
Marquette and Stanford at 4:30, and Wichita State plays Ohio State at 7:05.
Oh, all right. So we're in the Sweet 16 now, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Who wins plays tomorrow
Right.
on Easter.
Right. So that's who you picking to win it all?
I got Florida.
Well, that might not be a bad pick.
I got Florida. They beat that team last night.
Okay.
Florida Gulf Coast.
Yeah. They had made a good run at it too.
Hey, you know who's in it now?
Who's in it now?
Duke. Won the game last night too.
Okay. So.
Hey, opening season is right around the corner.
Baseball.
Yeah. Opening day.
Yeah. When is that?
The first.
The first. Oh, it's Monday then. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So somebody says the Washington Nationals may be the team to beat this year.
We're not playing them.
I know that. Just saying that people saying that might be the best team in the majors this year.
You know who we have to play?
No, I don't.
The Phillies.
The Phillies. All right. All right. Thanks, Brett. We'll talk to you later.
All right.
Bye, Brett.
All right. Bye-bye.
Hey, Miss Kim. We
Good
have
morning.
Kim Letford with us. Kim, tell us about the golf tournament coming up.
Well, I didn't come in here to do this.
Well, I
but
know. We kind of
Blame Danny. Blame
railroaded
Danny.
me into it.
Yeah,
didn't
we
you?
did. She just brought us applications, and all of a sudden or registration forms. So you're having the 3rd annual golf tournament for Destin.
We are. This was just a way, Debbie, that I felt like we could keep Dustin's memory alive and be able to give back to the community through this golf tournament. We raise money for through getting different businesses to sponsor holes, and then we take that money that we raise and we give it to a senior at all 3 of our area high schools. We ask that they be an athlete, and one of the things that we ask them to do is write an essay on the dangers of drinking and driving. We may even add texting and driving to that too, because that has become a big problem.
Wow. Yeah.
But and then if they've been affected by drunk drivers in some way, we ask them to write that into the essay. And this is just a way that we feel like we can give back.
When is the tournament?
It's June the 8th at Chatta Valley, 8 o'clock in the morning. Chick-fil-A is going to provide breakfast, and Shane's Rib Shack is going to do lunch. So if nothing else, you need to come eat.
Right. And you have to
Might have to find my golf
register
clubs.
by
If
May
you
the
register
15th.
by May 15th, it's only $45 per golfer. After that, it goes up to $50 per golfer.
That's still very
That's a
reasonable.
great rate, though, $45.
And
Now,
scholarship, and it raises scholarship money, which is a really good thing.
now, do you know the golf format? Is it
It's a 4-man select shot.
4-man select? I'm good at those, but particularly if I play with good players. You got to find 4 guys, and someone asked me one day what my handicap was, and I said golf. Pretty much. That's my handicap. Yeah.
Well, we got lots of great door prizes. Businesses have been real open towards giving me some really good things. So, Ron, even if you don't play golf very well, you can at least come and win a door prize.
There you
I
go.
don't play golf very well.
He's just there for the outdoor activity.
I shot a 72 the other day, but it started raining after 5 holes, and I had to quit.
On the y'all are talking to these mechanics this morning. I'd just like to give you a perspective. I came in on the latter part of the first conversation. I heard something about preachers. And I am sure not comparing myself to a preacher's wife, but being married to a mechanic is kind of like being married to a preacher, because he's on call all the time.
Yeah, that's right.
People have called our house at 6 o'clock in the morning and at 11 o'clock at night.
And everybody calling has a problem, right?
That's right.
That only Danny can fix, yeah.
And Danny's prayed over a few things he couldn't fix, right?
Yeah, right. Well, thanks, Kim. Be sure to call
Thank
back
you.
on Saturday mornings and remind our listeners about this.
And if
I'm
you want to
sure
register, you can pick up the forms here at Whoop. We're going to leave them here on the counter for people to pick up.
That's good.
We've got them around at several different businesses, so and I don't care for them to have my cell phone number if they have any questions about
All
the
right,
tournament.
Go ahead and give it to them.
Okay, it's 715-3157. And if you'd like to sponsor a hole, or if you'd like to just come play and you've got some questions about it, or if we'd just take a donation. We
Sure.
don't care.
There you go. Or someone has something that they can donate to the cause. I'm sure you'd be glad to
I
take
think
it.
I could pay $45 and get my money's worth just a Chick-fil-A and Shane's Shibra.
Shane's Rib Shack,
Yeah,
that's right.
I could, yeah.
Thank you all for
Thanks,
your
Kim.
time.
Thank you,
Thanks
Kim.
for doing this.
All right. You're welcome. You're welcome.
That's on June 8th, and good 4-man
Bye-bye, dear.
select. So get your team together and go out, and great door prizes and great food, it sounds like, out at Chatta Valley Golf Course. And so look to be there. If you're a golfer, go on out. Like I say, I've never been too good. I played in a golf tournament out in Memphis, and I was the D player of the 4. There's the A, B, C, and D, and the A player was a former Mississippi State golf team member. He said, Ron, just aim down there just on the left of that tree. And I looked at him and I said, you can aim? I didn't know you could do that. Now, let's take this call. Good morning. You live on Old Town Cleveland.
Good morning, this is Marilyn.
Hey, good morning, Marilyn. Is T out with the frozen fish this morning?
Yeah, we're down here at the co-op with the fish, and they'll be here for a few minutes if anybody needs fish. You were talking about people's first car. Of course, I never had one until after I got married, and the first one that T and I had was a 53 Ford, and they were talking about headliners. Well, the headliner got messed up, and T just took it out.
Yeah.
And he took the back seat out of the car so he could haul. People would call the co-op and say, get T to bring me a couple of this or that till tomorrow, and he'd deliver stuff. He took the back seat out and delivered stuff out of that old car. And we rode around, and it'd rattle and bang, and we drove hundreds of miles, and Tommy's standing up in the front seat.
Yeah, that was before child safety equipment that got to be like a NASCAR racer to put your kid in the car. Marilyn, I remember you guys having a Carmageddon.
Yes.
And y'all getting rid of it because it was going to cost like $50 to get it fixed.
Yeah, yeah. Now we go, oh my goodness, we had one of those. And
I always think about that when I see them sitting at the car show.
yeah, and they were talking about mechanics. I said, well, we'd get ready to go somewhere, and Daddy'd put a gallon of water and a quart of oil and a bottle of transmission fluid and a roll of duct tape in the car, and we just take off wherever.
That's right.
You just fix whatever fell off of it.
I remember coming off of Chilhowie. I guess we were in that 64 blue and white truck or 65, whichever one it was, and a fan belt broke way up on top of the mountain. Dad just started walking down the hill, and somebody came by and picked him up, took him all the way over, I guess, to Lake Ocoee Inn. They probably had some emergency kind of supplies there. Then drove him all the way back up the mountain to where the truck was broken down and wouldn't take any money or anything. And I said, well, today you'd be afraid to pick somebody up, even if you knew they were having car trouble.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now you just have an app on your iPhone and plug.
That's right. You call for help.
Help.
Meryl, what do you think the first car T had was?
Now, they had a Studebaker Hawk.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. At some point, I think him or Jack one may have wrecked it. When Michigan Avenue Road or Dry Valley Road was dirt and tried to make a jet plane out of it.
They didn't fly too well, did they?
No, the landing got you. Don't forget to wish Mother a happy birthday.
Oh, yes.
This morning.
All righty, thank you. Bye-bye, thanks.
Bye-bye.
Our mom was born on Easter Sunday in 1929, and she will be 84 years old tomorrow on Easter Day, and so all of our family will be with her celebrating her birthday and Easter.
I thought it was really neat last Sunday that she was there and you recognized her.
Well, I had dreamed that I was standing up there talking, and there was just one person sitting in each section, and she was one of them. And so when I looked back there and saw her, I just felt like I needed to do that.
Good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Hey, Ron. It's Harold.
Hey, Harold.
Debbie was talking about the Gulf service station that done mechanic work. That was Bearden's down on the corner of 3rd and Ocoee Street. Yep. And he worked there. I think he almost lived there. Worked in a pair of overalls all the time, and when they buried him over at Buckner's, they buried him in a pair of overalls.
In his best pair, I guess.
Who owned Bob's Gulf?
Somebody online says that the last person that owned it was a Hobbs, and Romy Montgomery name came up.
Romy Montgomery, he worked for Beards down there.
Oh, okay.
And it used to be about, seemed like it was about, Black Cunningham run a service station right angled across there on Ocoee Street, Ocoee and 3rd, years ago. That was a big hangout for the racers and gamblers and drinkers and whatever. So,
or some of them were, all of them, right?
Well, it could have been, Ron.
Okay.
Been.
Now, how do you know about that?
Well, maybe I might have hung out there.
That's right. Mr. Ballard, at your junkyard that you had, were there certain people that were always there picking up pieces, or?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You just knew that, and I was just curious about that, if you had just people that were there all the time getting things.
Well, if you owned an old car, we sold you parts sometime during your lifetime.
Yeah.
And so it was, we made a lot of good friends, enjoyed all of them, I think. We had a lot of good friends and in the mechanical business and the car business. And it was just a lot of fun of growing up in that type of business. I enjoyed all of it.
Mr. Ballard, as far as engine builders for the race cars, who were the good engine builders around?
Paul Holt, Fed Lewis, there's a few more around, but Paul was, and I think he died yesterday.
Yeah, we just lost him this week.
But Paul was real good, and Fed Lewis, He was the top notch. He really built a good engine, and he built a race engine. Used to the old 454 engines. You couldn't keep them together at high RPMs, and he made an extra oil hole that GM didn't know about, and he got 454 engines where they would stay together and win races.
Well, all my mechanics here are shaking their head. Yes, I have no idea what you're talking about, but it sounds impressive.
Yeah, Ted did lots of Daddy's machine work when Daddy was in the garage business.
He could do anything. It didn't matter what it was to a car. Years ago, I remember when I was a boy, and he was young too, he would come out to the shop when we were down on South Lee Highway. It was Ballard and Whaley at that time, and he would sit for hours, and he'd sit down in the floor with a transmission or a rear end or anything that had moving parts in it, and he would turn it, and he would study it, and he would look at it. You'd walk back and not even know he was there, and there he sat on the floor with an old transmission or rear end stuff in it. So he was really good, I thought.
Something I mentioned on the previous show we did on Old Mechanics, he also made his own boring bar, his own cam grinder, his own brake lathe, and Daddy knew him really, really well. And like I say, he did a lot of machine work for Daddy. And we were visiting one time, and Ted was smart, but he was humble with it. He really was.
Really was, huh?
Yes, but he volunteered the fact that when Ralph Earnhardt, that's Dale Earnhardt Sr.'s father, won his 2 NASCAR modified championships. I don't remember the exact years, 57, 58, somewhere in that range. Ted had ground the camshafts for that engine. So Ted was he was known pretty far and wide, besides just in Cleveland, Tennessee.
We are so tickled that we have a picture of Ted standing out in front of a race car with a big old Gulf sign behind him.
Wow.
And that's going to go in our documentary. And Mr. Ballard, speaking of that, get your hair all brushed up. We're going to come video you talking about your early memories of the racetrack. And we want you to talk about who built the engines and what you remember about that. Now, I know, of course, we know Doc German is still with us, thankfully. But do you know any of those other early racers from like 1954 or something that are still with us?
Not really. Doc's memory is a whole lot better than mine.
Well, we're going to interview him too, but we're going to get you too.
We're both about the same age, but yeah. I think I'll be 82 in July, and I think Doc's right along there with me.
Yeah, I think he's 82 already. But you're right. He has an incredible memory about the cars and what number they were and who were the engine builders and all that. But we're going to let everybody participate that we can find that was around at that time. And, of course, you were already very generous and gave me pictures. But we need everybody that's listening that have racing pictures from the Cleveland Speedway, especially videos or movies. We need those desperately to share with us.
Well, it'll be interesting to see because Eddie bought your book, the other book, and he really liked it. And my son,
thank you.
Park Place now.
Well, I've been very fortunate, and we thought we'd sell a few dozen of the books last Sunday about Caney Creek, and I'm sitting here with a shoebox full of them. It's all I got left. But we've reordered. But
Mr. Ballard, what's Elvis and Gilbert doing these days?
Gilbert works for Cleveland Ready Mix, and Elvis works for Randy Wattenbarger at Cleveland Boat Center. He's a boat mechanic.
Okay.
Oh, very interesting.
I haven't seen those two guys in years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're both still around and still working.
Well, that's
so.
Well, is Gilbert Snooks? Because I've never known Snooks' real name.
No.
His Snooks is Herman Everett Jr.
Okay, I never knew that. I just knew him as Snooks.
My dad's name.
Okay, yeah.
The Snooks and Gilbert are cousins, right?
Okay.
Is that right?
Is do what?
Gilbert and Snooks are cousins, right?
Gilbert and Snooks are cousins.
Yeah.
Well, Snooks, no. Snooks is Gilbert's uncle.
Okay.
Snooks is my brother.
Oh, that's right. Snooks lived across the street from me one day, and I was trying to take a spindle off a car, and I didn't have any idea what I was doing, and I'd taken every bolt and screw and thing loose, and I whenever got Snooky, he come over and hit it with a hammer, and it fell off.
One bump.
One bump, and I'd been working. I had put the whole car back together then.
There was a little art to that.
Yeah,
and Ron didn't study art, apparently.
Well, I'm getting.
Thank you, Harold. It's always a pleasure talking to you, buddy.
It's always a pleasure to call in to and talk to you folks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Be listening.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
We had he and Doc on when they were both 80, I think, and we called them two wild and crazy guys. And Doc was sitting here going, well, so-and-so's car had eyeballs painted on the back of it, and then he painted it pink, and then he did. Harold looked at him and says, good Lord, Doc, I can't remember where I parked my truck. How do you remember all that stuff?
Good morning, you live on Old Town Cleveland.
Yeah, this is Pappy's brother, Pappy Lee.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And Bob's Gulf Station's owner was Bob McReynolds or Bob Reynolds one. I don't know. I think it's McReynolds.
That's right.
They're all shaking their head yes. Whether they know that's true or not, they're all shaking their head yes.
I would have never remembered that, but once you said
I thought his last name was Gulf. Yeah.
No, it's either Reynolds or McReynolds.
I don't think you're quite old enough to remember that there was a murder there. Well, I know you're not old enough to remember that. I think probably in maybe the 30s, late 30s. Y'all remember that, boys?
Yeah, I remember.
There was some. Well, I meant heard it. I didn't.
I'm sorry.
Apparently, there was whoever owned the station had gone by there and was doing something, and somebody came along and he was shot during the robbery, and the owner was dead, and I don't think they ever solved the mystery.
Oh, well, I that was before my.
And I'm thinking the name was Reynolds.
It has a Reynolds in it.
It has a Reynolds in it somewhere. Well, thank you. Did you have a mechanic we have not mentioned is what I'm trying to say.
Did I ever what?
Did you have a mechanic in mind that we haven't mentioned, or a gas station, or a parts place?
Well, I remember the Montgomery and the Pappy Morgan down on South Lee. I remember all of them, and I know Sid Lewis. He used to be out Prospect for a while, but he was a good mechanic. I know. That's about all I know.
Okay. Was Sid and Ted related to each other?
Who?
Sid Lewis and Ted Lewis. Do you think they were related to each other?
I think they were.
Okay. Well, I know somebody out of that family I can ask.
My wife just got out Hayward Steel Snake Man senior pitcher in high school. And I remember him. And my wife remembers him. She graduated the same year he did.
Oh, he was quite a handsome fella.
Well, anyway.
Thanks. It's good talking to you this morning.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
A while back, I come across an interesting piece
What's that?
Of my dad's. It was his Master Mechanic certificate from Rambler.
From Rambler. Where
Yeah.
did he go to get the training?
To Atlanta.
To Atlanta.
Yeah, and this was in October of 1950. 9 months to the day when I was born.
There you go. Marvin Cry had given us pictures that he had gone to the Bear, B-E-A-R.
Yeah, I know all about Bear.
Well, tell me about Bear, because I have some great pictures of it, of them.
Actually, I still use old Bear equipment.
Oh.
And I actually have a 1947 Bear wheel balancer. And it's an electronic wheel balancer.
Wow.
I went online now. It's Northern Tools or Northern Supply, something like that.
Okay.
It doesn't go under Bear, but they are a Bear dealer. And I went online and looked it up, and like I said, I was amazed that I had a 1947 wheel balancer.
Well, why, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Well, the thing is, part of it's gone, and the last few years I used it, I did race car tires where you just kind of got them close, you know, because on these dragsters they're running 150, 160 miles an hour. It doesn't matter whether they're shaking or not. You want to make sure it goes straight.
And if you're on a dirt track, it's going to be bumpy anyway, isn't it?
That's right. That's right.
So Neil, as a child, did you go to the racetrack a lot?
Yes, I did. As a matter of fact, my earliest memory was before I even started school. And I started school at 5 years old, which is too young. But anyway, I started at 5 years old. And this was at I really don't know how I remember it, but I do. It was at Boyd Speedway down in Chattanooga, and I went with Daddy. And it was just he and I. And I just remember there holding his hand and all the dust and the noise, and I didn't even know what I was looking at. But you know what?
You liked it.
I really did. I really did. And then I've never raced, but I've always been a spectator and enjoyed seeing the evolution of the racing. I can remember barely the old flathead Ford coupes running. And of course, one of my most favorite, probably my favorite era of racing is the old super modified era where they just went nuts. How light can you make it? How fast can you make it?
How dangerous can you make it?
They were open wheel. That's when they started running the Hillborn injection methanol fuel engines, quick change rear end. Didn't even have a transmission. Had an in-out box. They pushed them off. And had wings on top to help press them down in the dirt. And of course, that's what Bill Fryer's brother, he ran the number 74. But I love that era.
Well, what you are just going to love seeing Billy Fryer's collection. He was so generous. He came in February of 2011, I believe, shortly, probably 5 or 6 months before he passed away. Yeah. And just brought me some incredible pictures and things that he knew that we would end up doing something with it. And he has pictures not only of that racer, well, the Skeeter, they were calling it.
Skeeter, yeah. Because they got that name because they're lightweight, and people started calling them Skeeters. Skeeter, lightweight.
Yeah,
and they had the wing on top. Since you mentioned that, I'm currently building a 1/8 scale model of Harold Fryer's number 74 super modified, and it's coming along pretty well.
Oh, that sounds great. His brother Harold,
Debbie Moore, co-host of Whoops Old Town Cleveland, has released.
Yes, Lord, I hear you saying my name.
I hate when it does that.
His brother Billy took the old Skeeter that Harold had gotten killed in, and remodeled it.
Well, Bill built the car initially.
He built it initially, and then it kind of got in disrepair and sat still for a long time. Well, then he rebuilt it. Right. And I have great newspaper articles. Folks, we're going to take a break for just a few moments and pay a few bills. If you want to call us when we go back on the air, you can reach us at 614-5553. You're listening to Old Town Cleveland.
You are listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. Whoop FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
Debbie Moore, co-host of Whoops Old Town Cleveland, has released a regional history book, Confederate Voices. The book is available at the Red Ribbon, the Museum Center at Five Points, and at www.oldtowncleveland.com. And be sure to tune in every Saturday morning at 10 for Old Town Cleveland, right here on Whoop FM. Pokey's Restaurant and Sports Bar on Sahara Drive in Cleveland has got great food, live bands, karaoke, pool tables, darts, and more. Plus, check out daily lunch specials Monday through Friday from 11 to 2. That's not all. Pokey's has got a brand new dinner menu with steaks, chicken, pork, and seafood dinners, and they're all delicious. Stop by and enjoy an appetizer, a specialty drink, lunch, or dinner anytime at Pokey's. And be listening for the new Wheel of Whoop with your chance to win cash. Coming soon to Pokey's, Sahara Drive, right here in Cleveland. Proudly serving the area since 1989. Call Pokey's today at 476-6059. Wheeler Technologies has moved. Visit them at their new location at 490 Grove Avenue Southwest next to Bradley Rentals. Same great folks, same great service with a better location to serve you. Call Wheeler Technologies for voice, data, and security needs at 664-TECH. That's 664-8324. And remember, depend on Wheeler Technologies for the current time and temperature every day at 476-1111. Tennessee Alarm Contractor C1750.
When you buy or sell or pawn,
you can't go wrong at U.S. Money Shops.
When money's tight, you'll be alright.
'Cause relief's in sight at U.S. Money Shops.
Hi, Glenn here from U.S. Money Shops. My friends always ask me, do you have flat screen TVs? Do you have tools? Do you have video games? Do you have jewelry? And my answer is always the same. Yes, yes, and yes. And all at a fraction of regular retail prices.
On with us.
We'll earn your trust.
Sell to us without any fuss. Buy from us.
You can rely on us.
If you're like most of us looking for the best deals available on brand name merchandise, then come visit us because there's no reason to pay full retail prices. U.S. Money Shops. Wide selection, great prices. So come on down to one of our 9 convenient locations. Visit usmoneyshops.com for the one nearest you.
Buy or sell or pawn today. The better way at U.S. Money Shops.
U.S. Money Shops. Buy, sell, pawn, we do it all.
Easter is just around the corner, and the Village Bake Shop has an excellent selection of all your sweet treats. Cakes, cupcakes, thumbprint cookies, chocolate-coated sugar cookies, and more. And all can be decorated for your Easter event. Remember all your other favorites like donuts, chocolate burgers, pies, fritters, Danish, and more. Always fresh and delicious any time of the year. Call in your Easter orders today at the Village Bake Shop, 476-5179, or visit at the Village Green Town Center in Cleveland. Happy Easter from the Village Bake Shop.
Welcome back to Old Town Cleveland here on Whoop FM 99.9, or you can go to the internet at www.whoopfm.com. Call us here at 614-5553. We're talking about mechanics today, and we've got with us Danny Ledford, Neil Allen, and David Swafford from Whoop on Wheels. Whoop on Wheels.
I tell you, folks would pay admission to see what happens around here during break.
Well, they did.
Yeah.
They just didn't hear it all. But,
I
yeah.
forgot about that.
Yeah, you're on camera all the time here, so you got to be very, very careful. I'd like to thank John Cook, who wrote our theme song for Old Town Cleveland. It's a song he wrote about him and his brother.
And we're glad you didn't kill him.
Yeah.
When he was laying under the truck.
Well, there's other times too. He's been wounded several times and not dead yet. So, but like I say, he wrote that song about him and his brother coming to the old town and walking around, and we, matter of fact, named our show after that song and used it as our theme song. I'd like to thank John Cook, and I'd like to thank everybody once again who showed up last Sunday at the premiere showing of the documentary Caney Creek called Going Home.
And I have some of the DVDs and books here today. They're $25 for the set, and if you're going to come by and get one, you need to come by just a few minutes after 12. We'll be here for about 15 or 20 minutes after 12. And please bring correct change, because I don't have change today.
All right, and we can take credit card.
Or checks.
Or large amounts of cash.
That's right.
Or buy 4 books and four combos and bring a $100 bill. We can handle that also.
There you go.
But we would say that the first order of the books is about gone. You can also go online at oldtowncleveland.com, and you can order directly from our website there. And so visit oldtowncleveland.com, and also join us on Facebook at Old Town Cleveland. Pretty easy to remember, Old Town Cleveland. So,
and we post old pictures there all the time. And we finally have gotten our listeners or our friends there on Facebook that are posting their old pictures. And so it's always fun to see. Someone posted a picture of them building the Bradley County Hospital, was what it was called originally, and you can see the dirt driveway leading up to it. And it must have been right before it was.
Neil has a picture of a group of people meeting at the Cedar Lane restaurant, right?
Yes.
And this is old mechanics and car people, Deb. Did you see this photo?
No, I didn't.
Oh, yes.
What it is, it was ever so often, this particular one was sponsored by Monroe-Matic Shocks, and they would, of course, it was promotional. They would bring a recent, it'd be either a NASCAR race or an Indianapolis-style race, and show it. You know, it'd be 8mm film, but they would have a dinner and show it. And I do recall going to not this particular one, but I did go to a couple of them with Daddy. But they weren't this fine and fancy. The ones I went to were at parts houses. They fed them there.
Now, where was this? What restaurant?
That is upstairs at the old Cedar Lane Hotel.
Which then was not cemetery, mortuary, and now it's Tire Town down in South Lake.
Yeah, but of course that was literally
Mrs. McClary and her daughter that were in the movie Wild River. They ran that restaurant, I understand, and Avery Johnson worked there.
Mm-hmm.
It has a whole history of its own that needs to be preserved, but I don't know it well enough to write it down.
Before we get back into mechanics, if you have a favorite mechanic, or a mechanic story or something happened, please give us a call here at 614-5553. Deb, tell us what's coming up in the next couple of weeks. Off the top of your head, real quick.
Uh-oh.
I don't remember. I'll think about that one, Ron.
Steel trap.
The steel trap has rusted.
I think on the 6th is Colonel Benjamin Cleveland. They're going to dedicate the monument to him, and we're going to talk about who he is. And he wasn't from here, but he had family ended up here, and they're buried up off Walker Valley Road, matter of fact. So, and I think there may be some other relatives here. So we have the Sons of the American Revolution coming in, Van Deacon. We're sorry, but that's the best we could do. But and
then what's the next weekend?
Next weekend's the 6th.
I mean the next one. I don't remember after that, but I know the third weekend is the Bushwhacker guy from Larry Stevens is coming from Georgia. He's written a great book.
Ken Jones and his band coming.
Yeah, I got it.
And they said they're not good, but we invited them anyway. So
I think they actually are good.
Yeah.
And they're going to be a lot of fun.
Good morning, you're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Hey, Ron.
Hey, Red.
That David Swafford you got in there, is that Super Dave?
Well,
it's Super Dave.
Well, wait a minute.
That's one of the Super Daves.
Why didn't somebody tell me? I wanted to meet him.
Well, I said, that's Red going there. He said, I haven't met her. So, that's Super Dave on Hoop on Wheels.
Yeah, and I didn't realize who you were until after you'd already left.
Yes, that's right.
I didn't hear who you was.
Oh, okay. I was just wanting to meet Super Dave, so
there you go.
Good chance.
He's single.
Is he?
Yeah, he's a lot better looking than Bob Cash too.
Oh boy.
Which don't say a lot, but he is better looking than Bob.
Well, I would have loved to have met you too.
All righty.
He's got more money than Bob too.
Well,
which may not be saying a whole lot.
That's not saying a lot either.
Thanks, Red.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, we have Benjamin Cleveland coming next week, or people coming to talk about him. Then we have Ken Jones and his friends that are all musicians, local musicians that have gotten together and made a group. Then we're going to be talking about the bushwhackers in the area during the Civil War the next weekend with Larry Stevens from Georgia. He's written a book about it, and he talks about there was this really nasty guy that came, Gatewood was his last name, and
killed 17, 18 people in Polk
County just because they had on like U.S. belt buckles and stuff. But he's written a whole book about it, very knowledgeable. We've heard him speak. And then the last weekend in April, we're going to have the bee lady back because everybody really enjoys when she comes in and talks about honey and bees and all that stuff.
And I like the samples.
And then we have Kim Frady, too, from the Agriculture Center. So we'll be talking about pollination and all that stuff that day.
And the first Saturday in May will be
Ken Rush.
Copper Hill. and the mines. And Ken Rush will be here to talk
From
about
the
all that.
Ducktown Museum.
I think their museum's about 30 years old now or something.
38 years old, and the city of Copper Hill just celebrated their 100th anniversary or something. So he's going to be, there's a whole bunch of activities going to happen up there in May, and he wanted to come in and talk about those.
All right, great. So, mechanics. Who built what?
Well, I don't know, but during all this talking, I happen to remember the first time I met Ted Lewis was 1968.
And where was that?
That was at my dad's shop on Harl Avenue. I thought, who's that old man in here? And then I just got to listening and watching, and he was a self-taught engineer. And he could sit down and draw pictures on the floor, and he was working on a perpetual motion machine. As a matter of fact, he was working on it over on Worth Street when we were there. And I ended up with, when he passed away, I ended up with his brake machine. And he was the only one that knew how to fix it. So when it tore up, I just had to let it go, because nobody else knew what he had in it.
We have a picture with a car that we found of
another
him in a
mechanic
car.
and him in the car, and it came out of one of the old racing programs. Folks, if you've got those at your house, it's a very valuable tool for us on this documentary to have those pictures. Even his family didn't remember seeing that picture of him. So please find his stuff.
If you still have the old helmets,
Bill says he knows where Jack Cunningham's helmet is.
All right, so we need that.
One of them, yeah.
Some of those old racers, Gene Norris, Jack Cunningham, Stedman's. There's a Stedman family. I think he raced, his son raced, and now his son builds motors and cars. Oh.
The Ritchie family and the Fryer family were very dominant. The Dosses.
Yeah.
Of course, the Johnson family.
Yeah. All right, let's take this call. Good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
I don't know if he was the best or smartest mechanic, but Charlie Simpson was the strongest mechanic.
Yeah, I remember old Charlie. Like you said, he was strong.
Boy, he was stout. We pulled in his garage in a cut down Volkswagen dune buggy. His car parked in my way, and we started to crank it up and move it over, and he just reached down and picked the whole front end up with us sitting in it and just moved us about 6 or 8 feet out of his way. I thought, God, boy, he's Superman. He's real stout.
Yep.
All right, I just wanted to.
Where was his shop at, Doug?
It was kind of there where your first cable TV office was.
Okay.
Down on Central Avenue.
Yes.
All right. Doug, you got to see the documentary the other day. What did you think?
I thought it was fantastic. I regret that I didn't get to shake Will Moore's hand and tell him how impressed I was with the work he done. I'd appreciate if you'd pass that on to him.
We will, and he's not moved out to Hollywood yet, so you probably get another chance here.
Well, it's kind of neat, to know that was a family affair, too. I was just super impressed, and there's so many people came. Everybody that was anybody in Bradley County was there to see it, I think.
Yeah, it was a good show. Danny didn't make it, he said.
Didn't make it.
Oh, well, I think probably the biggest compliment we got was the fellow from Young Harris College came down, and he said that when he pulled up, this can't be a documentary, this has to be a basketball game or something, because there were so many people there.
Right. Well, I'm just enjoying myself. I was pretty bad sick, but I wouldn't have missed it for the world.
Well,
we're glad you were there.
Appreciate you coming. Bye-bye, dear.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Of course, we have to mention Mr. Liner that ran the station for so long there at the 20th Street at Ocoee. And thankfully, we've saved that old building, and I hope that Lee University keeps it.
Good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Good morning. You're talking about Paul Holt. Yep. A friend of mine I grew up with was he was a young teenager, and Paul Holt gave him a job as a floor sweeper, just basically to keep him out of trouble. And I'd go visit him, and I'd go in there and see all these guys, and it's mostly that people building hot rods or racing cars. And I remember one time somebody had built one, and it sold the flywheel out of the bell housing and through the floorboard and up through the firewall, and just barely missed his feet while he's driving.
No.
And there was all kinds of mechanics would come in there and work for Paul, basically for their own equipment, their own vehicles. And one of them was Bonnie Coball. And Bonnie had built, I think, the first Harley chopper, his old panhead Harley, in Bradley County, long before I had seen them anywhere else. It was. I remember when I first seen it, it was odd looking, because I'd never seen nothing like it before.
Well, yeah, that's kind of like the cars and things that Bud Holmes built. There's nothing that compared to them.
Or Bud was building those. This is like in the early 60s.
Oh, long before that, okay.
Yeah, I guarantee you, it's probably the first one in Bradley County. And then I got a Ted Lewis story.
Go ahead.
I was building, supposed to be box stock 5 horsepower Briggs Stratton engines for go-karts. And I'd partnered with Pee Wee at Car Parts. I'd found a piston that just fit in there perfectly, but was much bigger in diameter. So I got him to bore that. We built this engine, put it on his frame, and we went to Tellico Plains to race it. And we was in competition locally here with Gary Wallace. Gary Wallace had got Ted Lewis to build him an engine. Ted Lewis, he formulated, the exhaust length there, tuned that engine. It had all kinds of tricks to it. We got up in the mountains, and this engine that me and Pee Wee built just ran all over the track there. There was a guy up there racing that was supposed to be the fastest in Tennessee. Pee Wee ran over his wheels because he couldn't drive around him. He just ran over him. And luckily, that engine blowed apart, because if it hadn't blown apart, we wouldn't have got out of there alive, because those guys up there they were hotter than firecrackers.
That's interesting. Who are we talking to?
This is
you can just tell your first name.
Boy.
Okay. Well, thanks for calling, dear. Bye-bye. And when we start talking about people that fix things and gas stations and stuff like that, where the Walgreens is now, Doc German, when he was 15 years old, his dad gave him enough money to buy some fella out that owned a gas station there. So he ran a gas station at the corner of, well, it was just Highway 11 then. But at 15 years old, he owned his own gas station, because that's the way you did things when you in the 40s.
I know. Knowing Doc, have you verified that story? Good morning. You live on Old Town Cleveland.
Yes, my husband was listening to you this morning, which he does all the time. But he said that you was talking about a moonshine still in Georgia.
A distillery. Yeah, it's a legal distillery in Georgia, and you can go in and...
Ran by former moonshiners, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, where is this at? Could you tell me?
Dawsonville, Georgia.
Go
to Ella and go south.
It's not easy to get there, but it's well worth the trip, and they don't charge you anything to walk through the distillery. I'm not sure of the hours at this moment, but the lady that ran it was working for AT&T, and she decided that she thought somebody needed to open up something like that, and they're actually making her grandpa's original recipe.
Yeah.
And it's not made with any sugar in it. It's just made with
So
yeast.
you don't have a hangover, they say.
But it's Dawsonville, Georgia.
According to how much you drank, I think.
It's what, Georgia?
Dawsonville. And right next door to the Moonshine Still is a great Georgia NASCAR museum, and it's only costs like $4 to go through it. And Ron and I probably were in there an hour or hour and a half, and we didn't read all the signs. We just looked at all the neat stuff.
Yeah, oh, sounds nice.
Yeah, so I think if you go to Ella J and go south, you will find Dawsonville. And if somebody knows an easy way to get there, which I don't think there is one, let us know.
There's not an easy way. You get to Ella J, you go across the mountain, and then you're almost there. But Bill Elliott, that's his hometown, and there's a little pool room down there where everybody eats.
Oh, okay.
And it's called the pool room. It's this real But the pool room and
the great thing about the distillery is they let you go back in the back, and the guy answered all of our questions, and he let us feel where things were cold and where the things were hot on the barrels,
and you could smell that mash cooking.
You could, and he let us watch the mash bubble, and I imagine we spent 30 or 40 minutes in there just walking around looking at the jugs.
One question he didn't answer.
What's that?
When was the last time you made moonshine in the woods?
He just laughed.
He said, I don't know if I ever did or not.
He said he started out, he looked like he was 60-something.
His actual still is sitting in the lobby.
Yes, that he had made, as a teenager, he had that still made and ran it for years. But his first job was to rinse out the old Coca-Cola gallon jugs to put the whiskey in, and those are on display there in the museum. And you can actually go down the street a little ways to the liquor store and buy the liquor.
Ooh. Well, now, my dad used to haul it all the time, and when I was a little girl, I remember it.
Well,
I remember it.
This lady was telling us when she grew up, she went for years without going to the doctor because they just doctored everything with a teaspoon of that moonshine.
Yeah, at work.
Yeah.
Well, there's no germs going to live in your body.
That's right.
They're going to get out of there.
I suggest that you get up early one morning and drive over and plan to stay part of the day. But we knew we were in dirt racing heaven when we got to the courthouse, and in the median there was a race car sitting in the middle of town.
Oh, my.
Well, it's, interesting, the City Hall, the NASCAR Museum, and the distilleries all in the same building. And they said the mayor of Dawsonville is one of the official taste testers at the distillery.
My husband.
We had a great time, and there's 3 old racers, including an old 30-something, looked like the first car I saw that Doc raced, sitting outside. They just have them sitting out there on the grass so you can walk around and look at them. It's a really interesting place.
Yeah.
It's just hard to get to.
Yeah. Well, we listen to you about every Saturday. And when you hit on things that I know, because it must be somewhere around my age, and I think, I remember that, and I remember that. So I remember a lot of that stuff.
Well, we appreciate you calling in, and we appreciate you listening.
Oh, thank you.
Bye, dear. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I love our callers.
I know David's got to go see this NASCAR, Georgia NASCAR.
I want to see him when he gets there. And I think my favorite part is when you first get there, they take you in and show you a little video, of all the really old racers and who won what and who, in the early years and stuff. And you're sitting on a couch that looks like it's made out of the back end of those old fancy 1950s cars that had the big wings on it. And you've got the speakers are the ones like from the drive-in theater beside you.
Wow.
And then they have things that look like tailgates that are hooked to the wall with trucks painted around them. I mean, whoever did it really did a good job.
And you remember seeing anything? I'd like to say you were there only about an hour, but much information about a fellow named Raymond Parks.
Oh, yes.
Well, Raymond was a bootlegger.
Mm-hmm.
And left Dawsonville Mountains and everything, went to Atlanta and started to work for his uncle, I believe. Long story short, he died just, I don't know, I lose track of time, probably 3 years ago, maybe longer. Mm-hmm. But he ended up owning about half of Atlanta. He died a multimillionaire.
Yeah, he had 11 racers that and 3 or 4 of them were national champions, all out of Dawsonville.
Yeah. And he was also a World War II veteran. He was at the Battle of the Bulge. Now, the only reason I know this is through reading stuff. I'm not that well, smart,
I think
quite an interesting fella. And what a lot of people don't know, and there's a book named Driving with the Devil by Dr. Neil Thompson, and it goes into this in a lot of depth. Raymond Parks never made a big deal of it, never mentioned it, never brought it up. But he, in order for NASCAR to be started and be successful, he had to prop up Bill France financially.
Oh yeah,
or it would have folded.
They talk about this in the video that they show before you go in. That France was just basically Parks is that. And of course, they claim that Dawsonville started dirt track racing. That's where apparently a very heavy place for moonshine.
Bootleggers would get together and race on Sunday.
On the cornfield, and I think it was Parks' farm.
Yeah. So yeah, they were
On Sunday afternoon, they race
he
around.
sort of sponsored 11 drivers, including Bill Elliott and some of those.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Hey, you're on.
Hey.
Joe.
Hey, Joe.
You know, Gene Watson used to be a mechanic here, too.
Where did he work?
They didn't say it. I was reading it in the paper thing, a little magazine that comes out in the Cleveland Daily Banner on Friday. He said, and I was reading that in the paper last week.
Okay.
He would be a mechanic here, too.
Okay.
Well, I think that it was one of those things that a lot of those folks came back from World War II, and they had picked up skills, and they started those shops.
You know, he's going to be in Chattanooga in May. Gene Watson is.
Huh.
You talking about the singer Gene Watson?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He was a mechanic here in Cleveland?
That's what it said there in the paper.
Huh. I didn't know that.
Didn't know that. Ron's played with him before.
Yeah.
They said he used to be a mechanic here in Cleveland.
Yeah, so he sung his farewell party here and went somewhere else.
Yeah. That's Mac Reynolds that used to own that ball.
Mac Reynolds.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it was Mac Reynolds? Okay.
Yeah, it's Mac Reynolds. I remember now because I used to pass that thing all the time back when I was a kid. And it's Mac Reynolds.
Okay.
I used to think it was Reynolds too, but it's Mac Reynolds.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, bud.
Thank you, Joe.
Bye-bye.
Hey, you can call us here at 614-5553. We're talking about mechanics. Today we got Danny Ledford, Neil Allen, and David Swafford here. David, you worked around the NASCAR a little bit. As mechanics work a little faster there, don't they? None of those shade tree mechanics
Yeah,
there
but I can tell you it's a whole lot easier than what these guys do.
Mm-hmm.
Really, just everything's modular now.
Yeah,
isn't
a
it?
lot easier to get to, and 2 bolts, and that's it.
2 bolts and it's it.
Oh, that's kind of scary. As fast
Hit
as
it with a
going.
hammer and it falls off.
Oh,
I know
right.
you. Good morning, live on Old Town Cleveland.
If I may say one more thing, I'll let you
Sure.
know. I didn't realize Danny Ledford's there. I used to bring him cars when I worked for Lord Cecil and Hoyt Goins, and he would know me if he's seen me. I need to come and see him one day next week. And you was talking about your kind of hilarious moments at a garage when Pappy Morgan's out on Benton Pike. He worked at his house there. He had a bad habit of crossing the spark plug wires. He says the best way to clean them out. And he done my dad's car that one time, and it actually blew a hole in the muffler.
I remember George doing that at times.
Mm-hmm.
Danny, how you been doing, buddy?
I'm doing fine, and like you said, I'd remember your face quicker than I will your name.
Well, I'm gonna come by and see you because my front end is giving me problems, and like I say, I used to use U2 back in the day, and I used to use a string and do it myself and run it from my back tire to the front tire, but
Yep.
I think that's about gone now.
Yep. Well, like I said, I'm still old school on it. I don't do the computer stuff, but like you said, the years I've been doing it, it's all about knowing what you're doing, not what you use.
To be across the street from where you are now, right?
Yeah, I'm next door to the Kawasaki shop. Yeah.
I know where you are, and like I say, I used to bring a lot of cars from his car dealers, and but you'd know me if you see me.
Okay, well, come on in. We'll treat you so many different ways. You're going to like one of them.
We'll see you.
Okay, bye-bye.
And we have to think about the mechanics, too, that probably didn't necessarily fix cars for a living, but they sure did make those street cars run fast. And folks like Stacy Cry that is legendary in this area.
Someone said that they hired kids to sweep the floor.
To keep them out from under their feet. I think you were...
Stacy Cry hired me. Well, he didn't hire me. He just made me sweep the floor and change tires.
Yeah.
I was the bicycle tire expert in the area. So I lived across the street from Stacy's station growing up. Good morning, live on Old Town Cleveland.
Yeah, this is Jim Seitz. I called in to recognize Jay Gamble as as good a mechanic that's ever been.
Where did he live, Jim?
He lived in Calhoun, Tennessee, and he kept all the city buses running for Mr. Bryant down there.
Jim, I'm going to give you a call and see if you can't hook me up with some families of some folks that might have passed on to see if we can get some more information on the mechanics and stuff in the area. Okay?
Okay. I'll see what I can do.
Thank you, Jim.
All right.
Okay, all right.
Bye-bye.
Jim's the one that introduced me to Mr. Fryer. Got him
David,
to
do you
come on
have
the show.
something there?
Well, I was going to say, Bullet was talking about stringing a car. With all the technology in NASCAR now, they still do it that way in NASCAR.
How funny.
I did a carburetor like that one time on an old Volkswagen van. We put the leakage broke, so we had a string, and we pulled it from Dalton back here. And you had to push the clutch at the right time.
Push that.
Good morning, you're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Good morning, this is Ed.
Hey, Ed. What's up, buddy?
Debbie, I appreciate your invitation, but I got it, and got it bad. Somebody else called in and said they had it, and mine's turned into pneumonia. I'm sitting here looking at the wall this morning.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Ed. And I had that on pneumonia last year, and it just about took the wind out of my sails.
Well,
it's mean.
I don't want this no more. I've enjoyed about all that I can stand.
Well, I tell you, Ed, if I'd known you so sick, I'd brought you back some of that shine from Georgia yesterday. That would have lit you up.
Boy, that's why I
You'd either cured you or you wouldn't really gave a darn.
Oh, yeah, probably. But the Lord wouldn't let me do that no more. Anyway.
Anymore. I seen your picture with Snort. Don't.
No, you don't even count that no more. Anyway,
okay.
I just had a little bit of thought there about when Mr. Ballard was talking. I worked for Wayville a while in the yard there when I come back out of the Army. And he'd tell me about old things. And I worked with Mr. Ballard back when I was a little boy, picking produce, back when he had the old airplane down on South Lee Highway, the produce stand down there. And he said that it got to where you couldn't find a light bulb in the junkyard or a fuse. Said them guys would go in there in cold weather with a big overcoat on, and said you just never could find none of that small stuff no more. So Mr. Ballard come up with an idea. He was sitting there, and there was an old scale, an old cotton scale, you would call it, on wheels, and one of those old scales that's made out of steel on wheels that you could just roll around. He rolled that in front of the door and put a sign up there, before entering yard, weigh in here. And that ended the problem. He said after that, they quit wearing big coats, said they had plenty of fuses and light bulbs. I thought,
I love it.
Really a deal. Okay, I'm going to get off.
Thanks, Ed. Get better.
Oh, I'm going to. I'm going to get out of here. I got, I wanted to go to church so bad for the Easter, but it don't look like I'm going to make it now.
Yeah.
Have a good day, all of you, and enjoyed it.
All right, there.
Thank you.
614-5553. That's 614-5553. We're talking to Danny Ledford, Neil Allen, and David Swafford about mechanics and what other lies we can tell. Good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Good morning, Ron and Debbie.
Hey, good morning.
It's Eddie. How you doing?
Hey, Eddie. What's up, buddy?
Well, I wanted to tell what kind of show we're going to have on April the 30th. I'm booked right now up to the 16th, but the 30th I'm working on it right now, and it's going to be Reese. It's called Reese Across America. It's the truckers. It's in the trucking industry that they take these wreaths to the cemeteries and put them on graves and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So
for Memorial Day, yes. Or is it Memorial Day or no? It wouldn't be. I don't know.
Well, it probably is, but we're going to do the show on the 30th.
Okay.
Down there that night. So, and it'll be people that's affiliated with this organization. I think I'm going to have the chairman of the Reefs Across America. That's the name of the company that will be calling in.
Mm-hmm.
And
that is such a pretty sight when they, especially in the military cemeteries where all the tombstones are just alike and there's that beautiful white marble and they put those wreaths against them. It's really impressive.
That's right. It is. Yeah, it really is. But anyway, I seen you had Mr. David Swafford down there. He helps me out on Tuesday night.
He's a pretty good fellow. We keep him around.
Without him, I couldn't make it.
Go ahead there, David.
Well, without you, that shows nothing, though.
Well, I'm always impressed with how many the big name brand callers you guys have call in.
We got some names for you from down out of Dawsonville that from their museum there, and I'm sure we get Mr. Perkle, who is one of the original dirt track racers in America in the 30s, the early 30s, and he owns the pool room too, where all the
he can talk racing and he can make a good burger too.
And the good thing about the pool room, now the bad thing is if you knock a ball off the table, it's $1 fine.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. $1.
I mean, when we call it the pool room, it really is a pool room. There's 2 big pool tables sitting right in the middle of the room.
Yeah.
It was fun.
And then there's a burger called the Bully Burger, and there was a guy named Bully Thurman that was the cook, but he never wrote down any of the orders. So when they got real busy, he couldn't remember what people ordered, so he just served it the way he wanted to. He put ketchup on it, some pickles, chopped onions, and coleslaw, and he put it out. And people finally just said, just give me a Bully Burger because that's what I'm going to get anyway. So it's a unique little different type burger, but they had meat and threes. And, of course, it has a ton of old racing pictures in there, walls covered in it. Of course, Bill Elliott's stuff in there. And so pretty interesting place.
Yeah, we've had Bill Elliott on our show before. He's called in.
Well, we hope we're going to get to interview him here for our documentary coming up. We got some people working on Mr. Elliott for us. So
it should be fun. Thanks,
Eddie, tell us the time of your show every week.
Yeah, can I tell you who I'm going to have on that show this coming week?
Sure.
Tuesday night?
Sure.
And then I'll get off here, guys.
You're fine.
It's, James Lupo. He's a chef. He goes around to all these races and cooks for different teams and stuff. He's going to be on. And, of course, Morgan Shepherd. We can't do it without Morgan every week. And then we're going to have Jennifer Jo Cobb. Dave knows who she is. She's part of the Reefs Across America, too, helping that. And Parker Klingerman and Mike Kalanoff. He's a spotter for Trevor Bain and Ricky Stenhouse Jr.
Sounds great. Tell us what time.
6:30.
6:30 on Tuesday nights?
Tuesday night, 6:30 to 9 o'clock. Brad City and Super Dave.
All right. That's a pair right there.
That's it. Hey, guys, we'll talk to you later.
All right. Thank you there, Eddie.
See ya.
Whoop on Wheels every Tuesday night, 6:30 to 9 o'clock right here on this Whoop FM. Or you can go to the internet at www.whoopfm.com. You can actually chat with us in there, too. The caller. Good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Hey, Ron. This is BJ.
Hey, BJ.
Hi, Debbie.
Hey.
Okay, first I want to say the Caney Creek documentary was it was excellent.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Just excellent. Will and all the Moores and everybody involved with it. Just kudos to you all.
Thank you.
Of course, my favorite mechanic was my daddy, Carl Allen, as well as my favorite person in the whole world.
Yes.
And he was an ace mechanic, an old school mechanic. Someone who hasn't been mentioned is Chester Kessler. He was a friend of Daddy's, and he was something else too. So Neil might say a few words about him.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I just wanted to call in and say I'm enjoying the show with David and Neil and Danny, and so I'll get off here now.
Thank you.
Thank you, BJ.
All righty, bye.
And when BJ called, it reminded me, I met Jim Seitz, who put me in touch with Billy Fryer, because at the car show, Neil and BJ walked us over several blocks to introduce us in person.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how that show, and it was one of our probably all-time biggest shows we've ever had.
I remember talking about the racetrack. I grew up a half mile from the racetrack, and I would walk there. And of course, how times are different now. When I was a young teenager, and we watched Billy Fryer drive those 55 Chevrolets in. That's when that was the big cars. The big race would be the 55 Chevys.
Yeah. They quit running the old open wheel super modifieds because people started getting hurt, and there were a couple of deaths too. Open wheels are dangerous.
Now,
and then they went back to
Neil explained to me what the open wheel deal.
No fenders.
Oh, okay.
You can see the wheels
And you get into this deal, if they get too close, there's nothing there to keep wheel from wheel, and you get into to wheel hopping and flipping and all that stuff. And they went to the full-bodied cars, and at that time they started racing primarily 55 Fords, 55 Chevrolets, and ironically, Harold Fryer's death happened after they started and went back to racing full-bodied cars, not in the Skeeter.
I understand some part came off the car in front of him.
A drive shaft came off out of a car, and right through into him, and that was
it's pretty much the end of it there. Yeah.
And after that, they mandated what's called drive shaft loops, big piece of steel going around the drive shaft where, if it comes loose, it may flip and flop, but it's not going to fly out of the car.
And then, of course, there's this. I'm sure it's going to be on the documentary because I know I think Mr. Ballard and Doc both were there the night that Jack Cunningham was basically ejected out of his car and fell on the track and was
his seatbelt had rotted. Yeah, during the winter.
And then there's great racetrack stories I'm sure we're going to get into that Ron's dad used to play live music on top of the stands there. Afterwards, they have big dances, and we don't have a picture of that, but I'm sure somebody out here will have a picture of it, and they'll share it with us.
And there's someone else back in 1970 era, 71, 72, there was a young boy who dressed like the flagman and stood down at the base of the flag, and he had the same colored flags. His mom had made him flags, and he'd wave the checkered flag.
I remember seeing that.
And
I mean, he could really flag a race, and but we don't know who he is. But I'm sure somebody out there listening will do. And also, they had contests there, and I know that Mr. Evans brought in a picture of his dad, where if you could carry. You got to put money in a big wash tub, and if you could carry it to so far, you got to keep it. And they said they stayed up all night rolling quarters and stuff. And Ruby Bryant had won that also. And I think there's a picture of Ruby around. There's a lot of nice old newspaper articles. There were 2,000 people there on the first day of the race, with the races opened. I mean, that means that there was a few stands and everybody was sitting in the grass and stuff. But 2,000 people on a Sunday afternoon in April. And the newspapers covered it very well. And they had all these crazy promotions that they did. So I'm sure that we're going to find some really interesting stuff.
And while we're mentioning Cleveland Speedway, every Saturday night racing, I think they have a race tonight unless it rains it out all the way. And the guy's name down there and running, his name is Steve Hickson, not Doughball from here.
But another Steve Hickson.
But another Steve Hickson, and he's been.
And he's thrilled that we're doing this documentary.
Very cooperative there, and so really looking forward to this.
I remember, of course, like I say, I've gone basically all my life. I don't go like I used to. I'll go to if they have the big race, I go now. But used to, it's every Saturday night. If they had run in a snowfall in January, I would have been there. But I remember going as a child, as a kid. Getting parked in the parking lot and just absolutely excited to death. You would hear the cars out there hot lapping and couldn't wait to get through the ticket gate to get in there. You go over that rise, and there they were. And you're always looking to see who's there, and it really was a thrill to me. It still is.
And we've heard stories about the big ambulance that had the big engine in it, and they were there to take people to the hospital if they need it. And during breaks, they'd get out and race around the track themselves in that big ambulance that we've got a picture of. We don't have it on a picture of it on the racetrack. And then we have to remember the people that work down in the pits, the Gene Norrises. They're
T.J. Hicks.
Ted Lewis's daughter told me that she didn't know that you were supposed to go up and sit in the stands until she was grown. She thought she went to the pit with her daddy.
Yep.
Well, when I worked with the sheriff's department, I got to work inside the pits one night as an officer, and you probably had to look the other way quite a bit there. Some of those guys were drinking. Some of them, it was out of a jar. I don't know exactly what water. They brought their own water. there to the tracks, but I think a lot of safety requirements probably have.
Did the water have a bead on it?
It beaded up real quick there, big beads real quick,
Okay, we're getting messages here online that someone's getting ready to send us some pictures of Jolie Johnson, Jerry Meadows, Pete Slayton, Donnie Smith, Malcolm Campbell, Rod Gentry. Yay, oh yay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Like I say,
that may be our friend from Ohio.
We're really getting hopefully that we will have the documentary completed in about 6 or 7 months, and then finish up the titling and all that, and have it at least shown before April of next year is our goal.
I think my favorite thing I found so far is a big ad ran, about an 8x10 ad ran in the Cleveland Daily Banner, and it had the Fryer brothers in it, and it says, "Wanted, anyone that can come to Cleveland Speedway and beat these guys," because there was a big rivalry went on that the Fryer brothers would come up out of Hamilton County, and they would take home all the prize money, and the local racers really hated that. And Mr. Harold Fryer would get out and taunt the crowd. He'd stop at the Ottawa and buy a whole box of bubble gum and come and pass it out to the kids, and the kids would love it and cheer for him when he was racing. Well, he'd come out and he'd bow to the crowd, and they'd boo him and throw beer bottles at him.
I think he had a crown and a cape at one time, too.
Yes.
So,
and we've got pictures of that. And I told Ron today that we're going to make a little card to pass out asking people for information, and a poster to put up in various places where you guys might can help us with that. But my favorite picture is an upside-down car that's got gasoline shooting out of the back of it. And a 1950s, one of those round cars. I'm surprised it didn't roll, Mm-hmm. But we will this is Bill Thaxton's daughter that's going to send us stuff, Ron. And she is a listener of Old Town Cleveland, and somebody pointed me in her direction, and she's very excited to help us out. And she worked in the concession stands in 1968 through 70.
That was always my favorite part.
And she was telling me the prices that Funyuns were 10 cents a bag, and the hamburgers were 25 cents, and the hot dogs were 20 cents.
Yeah.
And
it cost $3 to get in back in, though. It was awful high.
I'm trying to figure out why they so elegantly called it the pits.
Yeah.
I've never figured that part out.
The last race I attended, which was about 3 weeks ago, was a big race.
Yes.
$25 to get in. I'm not complaining. But I'm just saying, $3 to it's times have changed.
Yeah, we used to get in.
But now that is not the weekly price. I want to be clear on that.
That's a special race.
Yes.
That's Shamrock, wasn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
I remember when we were dating, it would be $3 a person or two people for $5 or something to get in.
Yeah, and the hamburgers were good. I remember them well, and the barbecues. And tell you one quick racetrack story there. The JCs had a demolition derby there several times. Raised a lot of money, and they were great entertainment. Cars burned and then blowed up and all that kind of stuff. But they had a little concession stand in the middle out there, and things got cars running off. We didn't have any way to stop cars from running into the pits and everything. Get wild, so we had the state president of the JCs. His name was Lincoln Davis, later become the U.S. Representative Lincoln Davis from over in the 4th District. Him and the state president of the JCs, or him and a couple of guys got up on the concession stand where it would be safe. There's a car got hit, went out of control, went through the concession stand, and it's and now there's no middle, and then you see that building swaying back and forth, and you don't see these guys, and finally you see them hands come out and they lean out over the edge of it and everything like that. So that was an interesting time.
Well, the racetrack did specialty shows too. I remember going to see the Joey Chitwood Thrill Show where they do up on the two tires.
That's pretty interesting, and they had the Powder Puff Derbies.
Yeah. An interesting story about Jolie Johnson. Once he took the track over and had it for, however many years he had it. But he got a Cleveland Utilities bill, and it was like at least double, maybe triple what it had been being. So he went to pay it, and which that's all he could do. And he asked him about it and said, the rates went up. And that was their explanation, commercial rates and this, that, and the other. And he told him, said, I'm going to pay it. That's all I can do, and that's what I'm supposed to do, but I know how to fix it. in just a few short weeks down in the fourth turn. It's still there, and they still use it. He went and bought a big diesel generator, sits down the fourth turn. All it costs them some diesel fuel. Now they have their own power.
Mm-hmm. Well, we were. Someone sent me a message yesterday online. I believe it was the Pritchett family that said Otis Green ran the grader down there for years. And I can remember that old water truck, too. We'd get there early, and we'd watch that water truck go around and around. And thankfully, you wouldn't have been able to stand it for the dust if they hadn't done that.
It was, if you ever walked out on the Cleveland Speedway, after a race, it was a good time to walk on it. And that's one muddy place. You'd think dirt track, they make it really muddy. And when they first pour the water on it.
The right word's tacky. You want it just tacky.
Yeah, tacky, right. They make it slippery, and then they drive around it, throw mud up on the stands and things like that. All right, folks. Hey, we just got about 7 or 8 minutes here talking about mechanics and racetracking and everything else that we can talk about. David, you want to go down to Dawsonville?
Oh, yeah, I would love to. I've been wanting to for years anyway, just because of Bill Elliott and all that.
Well, you see a lot of trees between here and there. A lot of Appalachia.
That would be great.
But good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Hey, I was wanting to mention, a lot of people might not remember this fella, but he was a black fella from Athens. His name was Merle Bradley. And he had a 65 Chevelle. It was yellow, and it had a 396 in it. You're talking about somebody that could mechanic on that thing. That fella was.
He was a street racer, wasn't he?
Yeah. He come around where I live in East Cleveland. This is Gary Runyon, by the way.
Thanks.
Ron, how are you?
Well, I'm doing great, Gary.
Now tell me the racer's name again.
Merle Bradley. Merle Bradley was his name.
Well, I'll tell you what. When we had our streetcar racing show. Nobody could tell us his real name, and they said all they knew about that car is they looked at its taillights a lot.
Yeah.
Because he just left them behind.
His name was Merle Bradley, and he was a tall, real skinny fella, and he used to come over my daddy's all the time, and I had a 67 Impala Super Sport, and he kept aggravating me to race him one day, so we come over here where they was building an APD 40. That was, it wasn't even paved yet. It was just dirt. And but it was real hard dirt. He said, "Let's go over here on the highway for $100." I said, "Come on." So we went over there, and me and him was just cutting up, But he probably beat me, about by a fender. But that old car would run he had, and that old guy, he was a good mechanic. And I don't know if anybody ever remembered him. His name again was Merle Bradley, and he was from Athens. And he come down here. He had family down here or something, and he'd come down here about every weekend.
And take the money back to Athens.
Yeah, and the money went back to Athens with him.
Well, yeah. Hey, I tell you what, a lot of times old Stacy Crowd knew him, and he knew him well, and you're talking about going down around Stacy's garage down there behind what was that, City Auto Parts.
Oh, yeah.
Down there back, and even before that, he had another one somewhere else, and I just. I was just a kid. I don't remember where. Oh, it was the Phillips 66 down on Springfield.
Yeah, that's where I grew up, right there across the street from him.
He grew up at the gas station.
Yeah, I changed the tires, and I was 6, 7 years old, and they had the tire changer in there changing tires and things.
Well, old Stacy was a good one, wasn't he?
He sure was.
I remember a black Chevelle. Him and Danny Clapson, both of them owned it, and that thing would run too, and I was just amazed by them both all the time.
I think I got a picture of that.
Yeah, well, I'd like to see it.
I'll look and see if I got that one.
Yeah, okay. All right, thank you very much.
All right, bye-bye now.
Bye.
Y'all made me think of another one, talking about all this racing. When I was growing up, I used to love when Mom and Dad would take us down Inman Street, and Curtis Harris go by there and see those big long dragsters and funny cars sitting there at the Harris Muffler.
Wow.
Yeah, he had several dragsters, didn't he?
That's something too. We need. I know that some of these cars are sitting in somebody's garage. The garage,
or out in the woods, even.
Or out in the woods. Let us know. We'd like to take pictures of them, no matter what condition they're in. Just let us know.
Right.
And we had a couple of people that when we contacted them about the Caney Creek documentary, they said, "Oh, I could never talk on video." And, well, I don't think I have any pictures. And then Sunday, we had people that said, "Oh, I wish I had gotten you the picture of my daddy. And I wish I had gotten you this." So don't let this opportunity go by to have your relatives recognized in this video. And I don't know where we're going to show this thing. Because when we can pack out Walker Valley, I'm sure the racing interest will be higher.
You may have to do 2 shows.
Yeah, I think we'll have to do several.
We're probably going to try to do another show in Cleveland on the Caney Creek documentary. Then we're looking at places in Polk County to do it there too, several showings. And then WTMB TV we're almost sure that they're going to play the documentary. And we have some work with some PBS people right now, and PBS is a little harder to get to. But
they have crazy people call them all the time.
Yeah, I understand.
I want to mention here, our friend here in Ohio that's going to send us all this wonderful stuff. She said at the same time that her daddy had the Speedway, he also had the Apison Downs, and they had Sunday horse races on his place in Apison.
Wow.
I'd like to see pictures of that too.
That's right. I didn't know they had a horse track down there.
Nope.
I learned
Very
something new
interesting.
today.
Oh, we always learn new stuff on this. We learn old stuff every week on this show.
I just try to remember, like Mr. Ballard, where my car is parked. I try to park in the same place every week. That way I know where it is. But someone parks there, then I'm lost for a day or two.
There was a wrecker out there moving something.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't doubt that, yeah. We're getting up to time here to close out.
I couldn't believe I turned around and we just had about 5 minutes to go. This has been one of those shows that has passed by so quickly.
Good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
They used to have rodeos and all out in Green Shadow Lake.
I remember when they had wagon trains out there.
Yeah.
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 I think that's about a thing of the past. I know our brother-in-law up in McMinn County, they have wagon trains and things like that up at the Hillsdale Fire Hall all the time, and I like to go up and look at the animals.
Yeah.
And eat the good food that the women bring in to sell.
After the rodeo out there one day, Ralph Buckner had the old red and white Pontiac ambulance.
Mm-hmm.
He come to the parking lot, and I just fell right in behind him. And I told old boy who was with me, I said, "Here's our ride to Cleveland right here." I had a 56 Ford. We come under the underpass here. We was doing a little over 100 miles an hour.
That really was ambulance chasing, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
I love it. I love it. But we won't tell anybody you did that.
Well, I think
statute of limitations is up. Well, thanks for listening and thanks for calling in.
Okay.
Bye-bye. All righty, guys.
Danny, thanks so much. Tell us where you're located at your office.
160 Worth Street Southwest. Right, if anybody knows where I used to be, over on 221 Worth Street, I'm on the other corner, just off of Broad.
You're right in behind Village Tire.
Yeah, behind Village and Capital Tire, and like I said, come down. We'll treat you so many different ways.
And if you haven't seen,
you want your car to go straight, come see Danny.
Come and see me, and we'll do our best.
You are listening to WOOP.
Get your elbow off the board.
I hit that. Good morning. You're live on Old Town Cleveland.
Nobody hadn't mentioned it, but Joe Howard's son had two of the fastest cars that was ever in Cleveland, a 54 Coupe and a 60 Corvette. So somebody else.
Neil's over here shaking his head and grinning. Yeah.
I remember the 60 Corvette, and I remember it having a hole cut through the hood, and he had made a plexiglass scoop like, and I was a kid, but I think that he ran 6 2-barrel carburetors on it on the street. I do remember the car.
Gasoline wasn't $3 a gallon.
No,
no.
And it was full of lead.
Yeah. All right, Danny, got any final things you want to say?
My steel trap memory remembers my Uncle Bill. Bill Derrick started with George back in the 50s out at the Rambler dealership, and I just forgot all about that. Like I said, my steel trap memory.
It'll come around eventually.
Yeah, it'll get here sooner or later.
It was Ridge Rambler was the name of it, but everybody we all call it Rambler Ridge.
That's it. And Max Finkel owned it.
Max Finkel, boy, that's a name I hadn't heard in a long time.
Yeah.
Just appreciate the opportunity to do this. I don't know that I added anything from the previous program we did on old mechanics, but I've never turned a wrench for pay. I've never been a paid mechanic, but grew up in it. And I did inherit the automotive gene, I reckon, from my father, and it's just an important part of my heritage.
Now, you have some of his old vehicles.
Yes.
You have the old wrecker?
You still have the old wrecker. Have a 41 Cadillac convertible that he had, 1941 Packard coupe that he had, and like I say, it's just an important part of my heritage.
Oh, good. David, you got anything final there?
Well, I just wanted to say I appreciate you having me on. I don't have the knowledge that they have by any means, but I love I really love learning from other people about these old mechanics and stuff.
Well, we appreciate you guys so much. Danny and Neil and David are kind of on we've got a short list of friends that we can call up and say, hey, come be on the show Saturday. And sometimes they won't even ask us what we're talking about. They'll just say yes. And so we appreciate that.
Well, I had something. When you talk about old mechanics, I don't know whether to enjoy that or what, you know.
Well, we're talking about those old ones, not the present ones.
You wouldn't calling me an old mechanic.
I am. Yeah, I am. David Swafford, who Whoop on Wheels, ever Tuesday night, 6:30 to 9. Tune in there. And David is, if you have any questions or any knowledge that you need to part with about Wild River, get to hold of David Swafford. He's writing a book about the movie Wild River, and so it's just unbelievable. If it wasn't for David Swafford, we may have forgot the Wild River movie here. It was going away very, very fast. And David brought it back to our attention. We do appreciate that. And I think the very first radio show we ever did on Whoop Radio in Old Town Cleveland was David Swafford talking about Wild River.
That's right.
And that was a great honor.
It was a lot of fun. We didn't really know what we was doing, but it was fun. I will bring books and CDs if I have any next Saturday with me. Right now they're not in stores
yet.
Yeah. We have none to take to stores.
Next Saturday.
Benjamin Cleveland.
All right. The Sons of American Revolution will be here.
In and talking about how to get in that organization and about the statue and how and why they did the statue, and I'm sure it'll be a lot of fun. And stay tuned, folks. We'll see you next Saturday.
As always, I always end the show by saying, get your old pictures from under the bed, particularly about your racetrack photos now. Get those old photos out. Get those old 8mm films out. Get all that out and trade that, because we'll always know what happened at Pearl Harbor, folks, but we may not know what happened in your neighborhood, in your family, and that is history. And the only way to save it is for you to share it with other people. And next week, we'll see you here on Old Town Cleveland.
You are listening to WOOP-LP, Cleveland, Tennessee. Whoop FM is a broadcasting service of the Traditional Music Resource Center, and we play America's original music.
Whoop FM is a nonprofit community radio station that is made possible by generous donations by individuals and the following sponsors.